Hello, everyone, and welcome to part two of our Let's Talk About Carbohydrates presentation. My name is Karina, and I'm a registered dietitian with the Credit Valley Family Health Team Diabetes Management Program. Today, I am joined by my colleague Radhika, who is also a registered dietitian, and we are both certified diabetes educators. Let's start by reviewing the agenda. In part one of our presentation, we talked about monitoring blood sugars, the effects of nutrients and food on blood sugar levels, and how to avoid ups and downs in your blood sugars. In our part two session, we will talk about the basics of carbohydrate counting, how to read and understand food labels, and finally, measuring tricks and resources to make estimating your carbohydrates intake easier. Carbohydrate counting, what is it? It's a flexible meal planning tool to help control your blood sugar levels and helps to minimize fluctuation. The concept of carbohydrate countings focuses specifically on carbohydrate containing foods to help estimate the amount of carbohydrates you are consuming at each meal or snack. How to do carbohydrate counting? Step 1. Start making healthy choices. Step 2. Set carbohydrate goals, like spreading them throughout the day. Step 3, deep dive into carbohydrate options. Step 4, calculating the carbohydrate content of foods. The first step to carbohydrate counting is to make healthy food choices at meals and snacks, ensuring variety and appropriate portion sizes to maintain a healthy body weight. The diabetes plate model is a good tool for healthy eating. It suggests you plan your portions the following way. Fill half of your plate with vegetables and divide the other half of your plate between proteins and whole grain foods. So some tips for building your plate here are: try to choose a variety of vegetables through the week as different color vegetables have different nutrients. Note that starchy root vegetables such as potato, corn, cassava belong in the grains and starches portion of the plate. For the grains and starches section, you can choose the lower glycemic index foods more often as we discussed earlier. As for the protein part of the plate, you can see that fish, lean meats, as well as legumes like beans, lentils, chickpeas belong in this area. Try to have legumes in the diet a few times a week, as well as fish, as these foods are part of a heart-healthy diet, and we want to avoid the complications of diabetes, such as heart disease. For snacks, it is important to pair one carbohydrate food with one protein food. This is better for the blood sugar and keeps you satisfied for a longer time. So for example, have a piece of multigrain toast with natural peanut butter or a plain Greek yogurt with berries. In general, it is recommended to have 45 to 60 grams of carbohydrates at mealtime, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and 15 to 30 grams of carbohydrates at snack time. Everyone's needs are different depending on your size and activity levels, so you may want to speak to a dietitian to set your own personal carbohydrate goals. On this slide, you can see that the plate model can be adapted to different cultural diets, such as West African and Mexican. It is important that you compose your own plate with foods that fit your heritage and personal preferences, while still following the general breakdown of the plate model. In the West African plate, there is a combo of greens, fish, and red rice. And in the Mexican plate, there is guacamole, tortilla, tomato salad, beans, and chicken. So you can be creative with your plate. The second step is to set your carbohydrate goals and reflect on what are your needs. In general, you should aim to eat a variety of foods spread between 3 balanced meals each day and include snacks in between meals if needed. Your meals should be spaced 4 to 6 hours apart. It is important to keep your carbohydrate intake consistent at each meal and snack time to help optimize your blood sugar control. In other words, it helps to distribute your carbs evenly throughout the day so that there is no one meal larger than the other. You can use the plate model method that we reviewed earlier. Another way to understand your needs is paying attention to your hunger cues. And one of the techniques to monitor your hunger levels is using the mindful eating scale. You could rank your hunger before eating and halfway through the meal. If you're at 6 or above, stop and save the leftovers. If you are below 6, continue eating slowly until satisfied. We have noticed that the size of our plates have increased over time, and we often tend to complete all that is in our plate. It helps to assess our hunger levels with the hunger scale. Be aware of your surroundings while eating, avoid distractions, and ensure to put down your utensils until you finish all that is in your mouth. It takes an average of 20 minutes for our brain to register when we are full. Aim to be satisfied after meals instead of being full. Also, have a small snack when hungry, but don't wait until you're famished. If you have lost your hunger cues, it is still recommended to eat 3 meals a day in order to get the nutrients that your body needs.
Now it's time for step 3 to find the carbohydrate content of your meal or snack. There are several methods and tools that you can use to determine the carbohydrate content of foods, such as those mentioned in this slide. Nutritional facts table on food packages, the Credit Valley Family Health Team carbohydrate counting food list that's listed on our web page, food apps, restaurant nutritional facts sheets, food scale or measuring cups. In order to be confident with your portions, make sure to use the measuring cups and spoons initially until you learn to eyeball portions. And when using the food labels, remember total carbohydrate includes fiber and sugars might be added or natural. A note that fiber is subtracted from the total carbohydrate as it does not impact your blood sugars. Let's take a look at the label above. If you take away 5 grams, that's the fiber content of this label, from 33 grams, you are left with 28 grams of available carbohydrate that will impact your blood sugars. Now let's look at another example. If you are counting carbs and you are finding sugar alcohols in the nutrition facts table, you need to subtract the sugar alcohol from the total amount to get the net carbs available. In this label, as discussed earlier, this product contains sugar alcohols as well as fiber, and it is important to subtract both from the total carbohydrate. So the available carbs in this package is 21 grams. Also a note about sugar alcohols that possible side effects are gas, bloating, or diarrhea if consumed in excessive amounts. We had taken a look at the nutritional facts table, but it's time for us to look at the ingredient list. Most pre-packaged foods in Canada with more than one ingredient must have a list of ingredients. This list shows all the ingredients in a pre-packaged food. It also provides important information for people with food allergies and intolerances to certain ingredients. The list of ingredients lists all the ingredients in a food product by weight. The list starts with the ingredient that weighs the most and ends with the ingredient that weighs the least. This means that a food contains more of the ingredients found at the beginning of the list and less of the ingredients at the end of the list. Here is a list of the types of sugar-based ingredients found on the label. It can be helpful when you're reading the ingredient list to know what are the different names that sugar can appear as. Also, here's some good news. Turning to technology can help you succeed in counting carbohydrates. Research shows that using a carbohydrate counting and diabetes app can improve your health. You will want to consider your overall comfort level with technology. Many apps are rich with features, but for some people, this can feel overwhelming. On the other hand, if you're the kind of person who loves data and technology, one of the more comprehensive apps might be an ideal way of you to tackle carbohydrate counting. We've listed our top picks app for carbohydrate counting that are simple to use with what we covered today, and they are free. Now let's practice. Take a moment to calculate the total amount of carbohydrates in this breakfast. It is composed of 1 cup of all bran cereal, half cup of 1% milk, and half cup of mixed berries. So as you can see, 1 cup of all bran cereal contains 30 grams of carbohydrate, half cup of milk contains 7.5 grams of carbohydrate, half cup of blueberries contains 15 grams of carbohydrate. So the total carbohydrate content of this meal is 52.5. Let's practice again. Take a moment to calculate the amount of available carbohydrate in this simple lunch, made up of 2 slices of whole grain bread, 3-ounce chicken breast, half small cucumber, half cup spinach in a sandwich, and 1 medium apple. Let's look at it together. So the 2 slices of whole grain bread contains 30 grams of carbs and 1 medium apple contains 15 grams of carbs. All the others have negligible or no carbohydrate in them. So the total carbohydrate in this meal is 45 grams. Let's walk through this activity together now. As I'm sure many of you noticed, the portion of crackers in this snack is less than the serving size outlined on the nutrition facts table. This means we have to divide all the values listed on the nutrition facts table by half, as we are only consuming half of the serving size. So instead of 22 grams of total carbohydrates, there are only 11 grams of total carbohydrate from the crackers. We also have to remember to subtract fiber from the total carbohydrates. Once again, since we are only consuming half the serving size, we will only subtract half the amount of fiber listed, which would end up being 1.5 grams. So we will take 11 grams of total carbohydrate and subtract 1.5 grams of carbohydrate, which gives us 9.5 grams of available carbohydrate from the crackers. Now on to the hummus. We are consuming the entire serving size for the hummus, which is one mini container of 57 grams of hummus. Since we are consuming the entire serving size, we do not need to adjust the value on the nutrition facts table. So we take our total amount of carbohydrate per serving, which is 11 grams, and we will subtract the amount of fiber per serving, which is 3 grams, and therefore there is 8 grams of available carbohydrate from the hummus. So now we will add the available carbohydrate from each snack component to get the total available carbohydrate from the snack, which is 17.5 grams. It's time to look at an example of carbohydrate counting while eating out. Imagine you are in a rush and did not have time to pack yourself a lunch. You see a Tim Hortons and decide to get a caprese sandwich and a yogurt parfait for lunch. How do you figure out how many carbohydrates are in this meal? Luckily, the nutrition information for most restaurants is available in store or online. On this slide, you can see some of the nutrition information for Tim Horton menu items, which was found online through their website. As you can see, the nutrition information sheet lists carbohydrate and fiber per menu item. Please take a moment to calculate the total amount of carbohydrates in this meal. So as you can see, the total carbohydrate in this meal is 91 grams. So 57 grams of carbohydrate in the caprese sandwich and 3 grams of fiber. So when you subtract the 3 grams, it becomes 54. And in the yogurt parfait, you have 40 grams of total carbohydrate and 3 grams of fiber. When you subtract, you get 37 grams. So the total carbohydrate coming from this meal is 91 grams.
We've talked a lot today about healthy eating patterns and keeping track of the amount of carbohydrates that you eat at each meal and snack through carbohydrate counting as a method to optimize your blood sugar levels. Keeping good record of the foods you eat, your physical activity, medications, and blood sugar levels are all important factors in managing your diabetes. By keeping record of the foods you eat and how they affect your blood sugar levels, you can make note of what behaviors should be adjusted and what behaviors should be maintained in your lifestyle. Record keeping is made easy in the Freestyle Libre app, where you can choose to add notes as shown at the bottom of the photo on this slide. This marks the end of our presentation. The key messages that we would like you to take home with you today are: 1. Balanced meals include fat, protein, and carbohydrate. Aim to fill half of your plate with vegetables, quarter with protein foods, and quarter with grains or starches. 2. Healthy portions of fat and protein will not raise your blood sugar. 3. Carbohydrates will raise your blood sugar. Choose low glycemic index carbohydrates most often and use carbohydrate counting techniques to meet your carbohydrate goals. 4. Fiber will not raise your blood sugar. Fiber is a nutrient that we should aim to eat more of, so eat more fibers. When using nutrition fact tables, remember to subtract fiber from total carbohydrates to determine the available carbohydrates. We hope that you enjoyed this session and found the information valuable. To learn more about diabetes and how to manage it better to live a healthy life, please visit the Diabetes Canada website at diabetes.ca or our website page at cvfht.ca/diabetes. We thank you for your time.